Hello, and welcome to the Fit for Farms podcast. How do we ensure agri-tech is farm ready? As part of our Growth Week, we're bringing together Somerset farmers Rob Addicott and Jeremy Padfield with Dr Annie Rayner from FAI Farms for a grounded, experience-led discussion on what it really takes to make agri-tech fit for farms. Rob and Jeremy have years of hands-on experience trialling and adopting new tools on mixed farming systems, navigating everything from soil challenges to livestock pressures. Annie adds insight from FAI Farms' long-standing work helping global food and farming businesses move toward practical, regenerative approaches, backed by more than 20 years of scientific and on-farm expertise. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. So we'll jump right in. So in one sentence each, please. When you hear fit for farms, what does that mean to you? Rob?
In one sentence only.
If you can.
Okay.
Take two, Tom.
Bringing technology onto farm, which is actually relevant for the farming work that we're doing.
Okay, thank you very much. Jeremy?
It needs to be reliable, and probably more importantly, needs to be affordable. And I think, the whole aim of certain techniques is that you need the correct data that the farm can access and utilise efficiently.
Excellent. And just to drill into that a bit, when you say affordable?
I think that's one of the slight issues we do have with some of the projects that we work with. We don't always know how much, we trial that and gather data, but we don't actually know what these things cost, which is fair enough because I think, obviously they need to protect the product. But it would, in order for it to roll out on mainstream agriculture, it needs to be able to be, stack up financially.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And Annie?
I think Fit for Farms needs to be really designed with the kind of farming context and the individuals, the farmers that are going to use it in mind. So really from that standpoint of user-centered design.
Okay, so I mean, keeping that thought in mind, what's one thing that every agri-tech developer should design around before they ever step onto a farm?
Around the farmer, absolutely. They're the ones that are going to be using it. They're the ones that can make the changes. So it really needs to be focused on their use. Yeah.
And Jeremy, do you think that's something that has been happening?
Well, before they set on the farm, they need to buy a decent pair of wellies. Yeah, I mean, as Annie said, really, it needs to, any of these new tech needs to be engaged with the farmer so that it's practical and workable. It's all well and good in a glass house or a laboratory or a factory, but in order for it to work efficiently and practically, there needs to be full engagement with the farmers.
Yeah, yeah. And Rob, is that something you feel you've seen?
Yeah, and I think farmers are a different breed. Yeah, but we're a different breed than researchers. And researchers have a very direct thing that they're trying to achieve. But farmers have probably a different view on that. So to marry that very early in the relationship, I think is really important. Often technology comes on the farm and it's been developed without the thought for farmers and how they would use it. And obviously then people are going to be slow to take it up.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, so for you, for a piece of technology to really have impacts, that's really where they need to be starting.
I think so. And I think if you want to sell it to all farmers as well, if they know that another farmer has been involved in developing, they think, oh yeah, well that's got some credentials and that's got some weight behind it. Whereas if it's just from a research organisation or from someone who's got an idea, then there's a little bit more scepticism.
Yeah, farmers will always listen to other farmers generally.
Yeah. Make the most out of their ability to look over the hedge next door, basically. Yeah, excellent. So I mean, Jeremy, tell us one thing that's made your day-to-day easier. Where tech is involved. What's one thing that you use on a daily basis that's really nailed it?
One of the things that we actually started working with it a couple of years ago, and it was like a vehicle tracking system. So it was on all the tractors and all the machines. So it's different. Whereas most telematics would be owned by a certain colour of machine. Whereas this system actually works for all makes and models, which is fantastic. And so you get real-time telematics. It's actually been more beneficial in the last 4 or 5 months because you can actually get it on your iPhone. So there's an app for it, whereas before you had to be in front of the desktop. So now you can actually, if you're out silage making and then you're sort of wondering when the next sort of trailers are going to come, you can actually look on your tracking system on the phone and actually know the next trailer is going to come, or you can think, right, they're not going to be here for another 5 minutes, so I can go off and do something else. So using your time much more efficiently, as well as the added data that you get from fuel efficiency, lead time on jobs, etc.
And it's really good on reporting as well. So when you get to the end of a job and you want to look at how efficiently you've done that job, you're able to dig into fuel consumption, time spent turning on the headlands, all of that stuff, and it's automatically produced. It also is a great record keeper because it automatically tracks. So when you forget to write it in your diary, it's there and it's available.
So when Jeremy goes down the pub halfway through harvest, you know where he is.
It's not usually in.
But in all seriousness, with commodity prices being squeezed like they are, as an arable producer, those marginal gains must be gold dust.
They are, and we're very slow to take up technology sometimes, but those ones where they do give marginal gains, they're really helpful for us as a business. Don't know what more to say about this particular tech, but the thing is that our workers can go out and they don't have to think about what they're doing. They sit on the tractor, they attach an implement, they go to a field, it's automatically recorded, and they don't have to get the app out on the phone or have a piece of paper and record. It's there for them. So that's the type of technology we like. It's okay for me. I'm quite techie. I quite like it, and I will sit and record things, but to expect all of our staff to be able to do that as well, that's quite a challenge.
And, Annie, you've seen farming systems all across the world. You've worked with farming systems from the farm to the supermarket shelf. In your experience, is there something you've seen or sort of a category of technology perhaps that you've really seen to make a difference?
I think you're right. The ones that have that level of automation that make someone's job easier, ultimately, they're the ones that are going to have the most difference, because you don't have to. It doesn't add extra time to your day. It just integrates nicely into the farming system and doesn't take out from the real job that people want to be doing, which is actually farming.
Yeah. We've also been involved with a project which is monitoring lamb growth with automatic lambing weigh stations. And I think, again, that's just something that it doesn't take any interaction from me. The lambs will just go and stand on the weigh scales, but it's those things where you can notice things that are going wrong or things that are going well before you would normally see that with your eyes, which is just helping add that level of detail to your business, and seeing things before they become a problem.
Yeah. And when we look at barriers to adoption, do you think some farmers might almost sort of think that, almost take as an insult that they might need to rely on technology and not their own stockmanship skills? Do you see that technology, like you've just described, as a complement or a replacement to sort of those fundamental?
I think it's a complement, and I think if technology's used well, what it does is release the farmer to do the thing that he really needs to focus on, because often you can get stuck in the detail when you lose the big picture. And I think if we sold it that way, then people would be far quicker to adopt new technologies, I think.
And one of the things we use is beef weighing equipment. So we've got drinkers, so the cattle walk onto a weighing platform to drink water. So several times a day we're getting a daily life weight. We're getting a daily life weight gain, but we're getting a daily weight. And you can set parameters on your phone so that if there's any issues with those animals health-wise, obviously flags up. But through the winter, our finishing cattle generally get weighed at least once a month. So now that actually takes that stress out of it, not only just from the animal's point of view, but ourselves as well, so they don't have to be run through the race and the crush and the weighing platform. It can be done in the comfort of their own finishing pens.
And gives more time for coffee.
Or something stronger, yes. So, when something new lands on your farm, if it's technology or anything else, what helps you decide if it's worth your time? If you're looking at something new, is it the time saving? Obviously, ultimately, it's going to come down to cost. But, is cost the only thing you look at? The sort of quality of life, how you might be able to help your employees?
Well, Rob likes as much tech as possible. I probably would prefer less techy. So I think it just needs to be user friendly. Yeah. As long as either ourselves or our small team can understand it, then that's the most important thing, and make sure that the data that we drive from it is useful.
Yeah. And Annie, through the farms and companies you've worked with, do you see similar things, or do you see other drivers come through?
I think, there seems to be quite a lot of pressure within the supply chain. So obviously data is quite king at the moment, isn't it? So there's definitely drivers, whether they're positive or negative, I'm not so sure, but from kind of within the supply chain in terms of people wanting, if you're buying this cattle or these chickens or whatnot, they want to know the information from where that's come from. So there's definitely other external drivers for sure, but whether they're positive or negative, I'm not so sure.
Do you when it comes to supply chain, demanding data and maybe pushing perhaps certain pieces of technology onto some farms, we see that a little bit within dairy within some supply chains. Do you think that sort of stick versus carrot approach is constructive? Do you think that's?
I don't know. I think it highlights an issue and an area, doesn't it? If anything, so even if it might be kind of, people might be a bit resistant to it, there's often a reason behind it, and whether that then drives kind of people to actually look at their own system or look at kind of alternatives to that, then maybe it can be positive, because it does kind of bring a bit of extra governance within the supply chain. But I feel like people should be able to choose ultimately, like that it is their farming businesses. They should be able to choose really what tech works for them. A lot of tech delivers quite similar things at times, often, as you go on, definitely. So there are options out there quite often, but some stuff there's less options, I guess.
Yeah. So I think from my point of view, if tech can bring a financial gain, that's brilliant. But there's other things I'm looking for as well. I'm looking for, does it add to our soil health? Does it add to animal welfare and health? Those things are key to our business, as key as financial. I don't know if we go broke, it doesn't work, does it? But yeah, so there's our own quality of life as well. If that adds to our quality of life, then we've got to take that, haven't we? We're in an industry which is pressurized. And so if we can do those things of marginal gains to ourselves as well, that's really helpful.
Interesting. Just going back a step, Rob, we were talking about the telematics earlier on and how sort of, those marginal gains can add up to make, to quite a large benefit. Yeah. Is that something you see a lot when it comes to putting tech on the farm? I mean, did you see that the tech generally sort of goes down that marginal gain route, or is there anything you've seen make, a huge sort of change to how you do things?
It's interesting what you call tech, isn't it? But we've had some, we trialed a product in the field last year, which was all about improving the soil microbial activity. And for us, that had a pretty significant effect in you straight away. It was a really bad autumn last year, and we were trying to establish crops in less than great conditions, but we used this product with it, and you could visibly see that it was a better establishment with it than without it. And that makes sense, doesn't it? If your soil is active and is working well, then the plant is going to be much more able to thrive in that situation than if you haven't got that. So there, yeah, it it was a bit of an eye-opener, wasn't it?
Well, it was, yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't just have to be tech-driven, you know. There's lots of biostimulants on the market now with lots of research going into it, and they're, you know, equally, you know, they're just as important. And it's having that healthy balance with using both. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we were, as a result of that trial, we saved about 65% of the nitrogen input onto those trial plots. So it's pretty significant.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Moving on. Annie, what's a common on-farm issue that you wish was more thoroughly addressed through Agri-Tech?
So I guess kind of working within the supply chain, obviously the data is kind of required at various different levels. And quite often you find with some kind of techs that they're not willing to share that data amongst kind of different partners. Obviously that belongs to the farmer, but ultimately sometimes they need to provide that to, I don't know, their abattoir, who then needs to provide it to their supplier as well. But actually there's often some kind of pinch points where it makes it impossible because of the way the data has been collected, or because the technology has been collected. They don't want to share their kind of IP, which is fair. But I think that's quite a big challenge often, is that fluid data sharing amongst different nodes within the supply chain.
I mean, that's something we come up against a lot at the Agri-Tech Centre. I mean, Jeremy, Rob, is that something you guys see within your systems?
I think one of the frustrating things from a farmer's point of view is, you know, each individual manufacturer wants to protect its own identity. And any new tech that they develop, they want to keep themselves. I mean, if you go back sort of 15, 20 years ago, you know, we trying to get a variable rate fertilizer spreader to work with more than one tractor was really difficult. Isobus has helped, but we're still not there. So I think that's one of the biggest issues. You know, there needs to be sort of level platform for us all to get on and use this tech as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not have to learn to use several pieces of tech.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, I'm fairly techie, but buying a new make of combine this year takes you a long time to get used to how to get the most out of that tech. So yeah, if companies could work together and researchers could work together in creating a platform that works for everyone, that would be great.
Do you think there's enough effort that goes into sort of, you know, the skills and training when it comes to tech in general? I mean, obviously, like you say, it's quite product specific, but, you know, do you think there could be more done?
I think there could be more training. I think what you find when you go to the training events is there's an expectation of that you've already got this base level of tech ability. And that's okay if you have, isn't it? But if you haven't, then you're lost already, and you've lost the battle of getting that person to use the technology.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Thank you, guys. So I mean, you know, the two of you, you've been part of a lot of trials. You've used a lot of different bits of kit. I'm sure a lot has come and gone over the years. But you know, of everything, of all the agri-tech you've used, what has proved to be sort of the most farm fit?
I think, you know, going back to the vehicle tracking system, I think also potentially the drone software that could identify individual weeds within the field. It was very good within oilseed rape, but green on green in wheat and barley's obviously more difficult. But sort of going back to the earlier question is, once again, to have that software that could marry up with our sprayer at the moment, even though we've got individual nozzle shut off, we couldn't get the software to work with our sprayer. You know, and some of the results from the drone software showed that, you know, there was only about 10% of weeds that needed to be sprayed in that field. So rather than going in and spraying the whole field, we could just literally save 90% of the. And actually, you know, environmentally it's the right thing, and obviously economically it's the right thing. But it's another frustrating thing where you can't get two companies to work together.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the next question I was going to ask is, you know, has there ever been a really promising bit of tech that you've used that, you know, it addresses a lot of issues you might have, and on paper looks fantastic, but there's just been that one thing holding it back? It sounds like, you know, that could be a good example of that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was really great, really simple to use. it flew itself, it did all the research itself. And then we approached a company who made our sprayer, and they were going to work with this company to produce then the maps that we could use on our sprayer. But once they got hold of that idea, then they eventually said, no, we want to do that ourselves. So you're back into square one. It's really frustrating that you've got two things that if you put them together should work, and they don't.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, Annie, through the regen side of things, you know, obviously there's a lot of reporting done there, carbon, biodiversity, a lot of data flying about. You know, you must have run into similar issues to these guys, but sort of in slightly different settings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because people are often reporting similar things quite often, but how they get to that is not necessarily the same. So you actually then end up not being able to kind of compare figures or reporting, because ultimately you're comparing apples and pears and they're totally different things. So yeah, there's, I think, an openness and kind of sharing. I think like there is obviously movements towards that and kind of open source tech and such, but I do think, yeah, there needs to be a bit more collaboration definitely within the kind of agri-tech industry.
Yeah. And when it comes to sort of, you know, collaborative sort of peer-to-peer sort of R&D and sort of on-farm demos, you know, what makes a good on-farm trial or on-farm demo to you? You know, what would a good on-farm trial show you as a visiting farmer?
I mean, I think the trials need to be fit for purpose in terms of how long they're on the farm. You know, rather than just rocking up and doing a trial for a month or 2 months, sometimes it really needs to be over a period of 12 months or more. So that's one of the things. I would look at the time scale that they would put to, you know, to have a trial on the farm.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you're demonstrating that to other farmers, it needs to be, other farmers need to look at that and say, I could do that. They don't need to be looking at a demonstration and saying, that looks really complicated.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm going to spend money on something like that.
Yeah.
And to that point, I guess you need them often across a variety of farms so that they are relevant to a variety of people too, so they can say, actually, yes, I have a similar-ish farming system to you that would work on mine. Whereas quite often you get a lot of people will turn up, see something, and they're like, well, it won't work on my farm because it's an entirely different system. So you need it across a variety.
And we know, you know, what the weather's like and the weather patterns, and that's another thing. You know, it's different soil types. You know, depending on what tech it is, but it once again, the weather, you know, varies all across the country, and yeah.
Year to year.
Yeah,
and it certainly does. And, you know, I suppose, you know, everybody here is involved in regen. You know, if you're trying to prove something within regen, that is, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it? So, you know, that time factor is really important there, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. And sort of, you know, touching on a previous question, you know, where you've tried something and it doesn't stick, you know, do you think there's one sort of common theme to, you know, why it doesn't stay within your system, or why you perhaps choose not to give it a go at all? I mean, you know, we've mentioned training, we've mentioned sort of the data side of things. Are there any other really sort of common barriers, I suppose, to?
I think the developers need to have that target audience. Can you remember without mentioning any names, it was a robot that worked its way through the grain store, measuring temperature, insect activity, etc. And it sounded great, but was it going to be commercially viable on farm? I'm not too sure. So I think having a price in mind as well, because it's, you know, we have different ideas come on the farm, and you think, yeah, it sounds great, but what's it actually going to cost us? Yeah. You know, we're trialing it, but if it works, and you know, what sort of money is it going to cost?
Yeah, and the frustrating thing with that particular idea was that it had already been developed before they talked to a farmer. Yeah. And they talked about how it was physically going to work on the farm.
Putting a cart before the horse.
Yeah. So it was actually a great idea, and if it had been economic, we would have probably invested in it. But they hadn't thought about the end market properly.
Okay. And just one last question, while we're on the theme. If there's one thing you could ask innovators within agri-tech in general to do differently, you know, what do you think that would be?
Well, I think, you know, we're all sort of on the regenerative journey, and we know where, how volatile the commodity prices markets are. So ultimately, we need to look at reducing inputs. So whether that means on the arable side, we're looking at spot spraying, weeding, hoeing, or a mixture of all using drone technology. So I think that's, we need to move that forward. I think it's really having that balance of using all that sort of technical. It's almost like, we all say we're using old traditional methods that our grandfathers used to use, but also embracing that modern technology. And I think we just need to sort of move that forward.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. Thank you, guys. So moving on, Annie, just a couple of questions about the fantastic work you've been doing. From your PhD work on positive animal welfare indicators, what's one positive indicator that farmers could really start looking at now that sort of improves both welfare and looking at the monitoring tools that could really improve their management decisions?
So positive animal welfare ultimately kind of turns welfare on its head, and it says that what we're looking to do is create a life for animals that is both kind of engaging and healthy, and really enables them to flourish. Rather than previously, we've been looking at welfare as a means of reducing the harm that we have on animals. So it's hard to say, as a true scientist, definitely, that there's one indicator. There's a multitude of indicators. Positive animal welfare aligns really nicely with regenerative agriculture. It's got that similar kind of principles as well. And obviously within regen, you're taking a much more holistic kind of look at the whole farming system. So looking at the kind of impact on the farmers, on the environment, on the animals and such. So I think from that, the kind of positive outcomes that you should be looking for should be really across that whole context. So looking, your lifestyle, does it improve your lifestyle? Does it improve the animal's well-being? Does it improve the environment, soil properties and such too? So it's, I think from those kind of welfare principles, they marry nicely with the regenerative principles too. And actually one measure is never really going to be enough, because you need to capture that whole context.
As with all things regen, it's never as simple as it seems. Yeah, it's just fantastic. So just to close things out, we'll have a few quick fire questions around the table. Rob, go to you first. What's one piece of advice you give to an agri-tech company?
I think we've talked about it already. Go and find a farmer. Go and ask him his opinion, and get that information in your head early on while you're developing your piece of tech.
Excellent. Jeremy?
Keep it affordable, and make sure that the data is relevant to what the farm or farmer needs.
I think, demonstrate that across a variety of farms, show that it really works in all contexts.
Jeremy, what's one tech-based practice that you'd like to see scaled nationally?
Okay, well, we all need to reduce our input costs. So I think there's more that needs to be done in terms of a holistic approach to reducing chemicals and fertilizers.
Excellent. Annie?
Yeah, I think similarly tech that supports those regenerative principles. So how can we reduce inputs? How can we make systems that's positive for people and animals and planet? So focusing tech on those, which is not one thing, it's many things.
But also, if the tech could report back to you so that you know that what you're doing is not just reducing chemicals, but you are having a positive impact on soils or bank balance, that would be really great.
Excellent. And Rob, what's one piece of tech that you're going to be on the lookout for this year?
I'm going to be on the lookout for a weather changing piece of tech. Yeah. I'm looking for the piece of software or the piece of tech which would allow different pieces of software and tech to talk to each other.
Data integration.
Yeah.
And once again, we're focusing probably more on using less. We don't apply any insecticides at the moment, so we're now looking to go down the route of less fungicides, but more importantly, less herbicides. So a bit of tech might be looking at inter-row hose, and also embracing some of the technology that Rob just mentioned on a sprayer.
Okay. Annie?
Shameless plug for our own Flockwise and BirdBox system. So yeah, it'll be cool to see how that develops. We've got an Innovate grant for it at the moment, looking at using AI to model sound, looking at changes in water consumption and stuff, and how that can be automatically detected on laying hen farms. So yeah, hopefully next year we'll have the house watching that. But more broadly, I think the use of AI, I think, will be really interesting to see how that develops. Maybe not in the next year, maybe in the next 5 years, but how that can actually be a force for good and be used as a really positive tool, as opposed to this kind of scary thing that people seem to feel that it is at times.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Well, that brings things to a close. Just like to thank you all, Rob, Jeremy, Annie, for joining us today on the Fit for Farms podcast. And yeah, thank you to everybody at home listening, and tune in for the next one.